Important thing out of this, though. You don't have to know what you're doing to get started. But I've always been that way, I think.
Right. Well, he's yeah, he's kind of saying that there's it's one of those things because from where we are, there's a story that has to happen. You know, we can't accept what somebody whispers in our ear, "Thou art that." We haven't gotten the level of inner purity or that inner lack of me in mind. We've got a very strong sense of egoism that is kind of trapping us in a little bit of a box. And to get out of that, we tell ourselves that the mind tells us a story, gives us a cause and effect for how we need to get where we're going, which isn't true, but we can't accept that until we've done some work, until we've done some inner purification, removal of the ideas of me and mine, kind of really sat and understood who the self is that he's talking about. Right now we think it's mind, and so we go and think about ourselves, or we think it's body, you know, uh, uh, and we take those ways. But really, it's that neti neti. It's knowing that you're not the body, knowing that you're not the mind, and going and being with that self, being in silence, in what the bhakta would call the presence of the beloved, and that's the sensation, that's the feeling when you're in there. Uh, and he says, listen to it, obey it, cherish it, keep it in mind. That's he's talking of Satchitananda there. This nature of yours, this nature of love, this nature of wisdom. Make that your guide. Get out of your head, get out of your planning, get out of the mind telling you what you need to do. We listen to the voice in our head because we think that's us. We think that's who we are. It isn't. I can't, that does not at all seem obvious to us because we're so accustomed to thinking to ourselves. When we read, we're thinking to ourselves. When we ask questions, we formulate the question in our head. We think that it's us. That's why we talk about it. That's why we say, I'm thinking, I'm doing. We really are thinking that our mind and its contents have something to do with what we are and who we are. And that's the false narrative. The mind and its thoughts have nothing to do with us. That's just that rolling wheel of samsara. So, really, what he's saying here is be with your nature, be with. Uh, I'm going to talk in bhakti language here because, I mean, that's the reason that bhakti is so effective in this age and that this path is so difficult, is that we don't know what he's talking about here when he says, well, meet your own self, be with your own self, listen to it, obey it. Because immediately we're going to think, oh, I'm just going to sit and kind of have tea with myself, sort of talk to myself, sort of get to know myself kind of thing. And that's not at all what he's referencing here. He's talking about Satchitananda. And so you can mix your bhakti in here, your bhakti in here, and practice the presence, which is to feel your awareness, become aware of your awareness. Call it the divine, if you like, that because that's easier in our condition to think that way. Call it the divine and see the nature of God. But really, in doing that, what you're in the Gyanik path, instead of being in the presence and feeling the presence of God, you're in your own presence, your own true presence, but you're doing it while you're locked in mind. So it looks like other. It looks like it's God because you believe yourself to be the mind. You believe yourself to be the body. And so the self that he's talking about here for you to be with, if you borrow from your bhakti knowledge, uh, think of the presence, feel the presence of love, feel the presence of wisdom within. It'll feel like something separate from yourself because we're kind of polluted with the ideas of me and mine right now. So what he's saying is just be with this knowledge of Satchitananda, this perfect love, God, this perfect wisdom, the divine. Be in relationship with that. But from the Jnani perspective, what you're doing is becoming aware of awareness. And your own nature is that perfect love that we normally associate with God, and the perfect wisdom that we normally associate with God, because we normally see God as other, and we see ourself as other from ourself. Anyway, does that make any sense? Are you catching that
Yes.
at all? You see, yeah, we're walking two paths at once here. And I'm bringing in Bhakti just kind of to try and help us get this awareness so that you don't, when he says be with your own self, you don't think that you go into your mind and just spend time with your personality, with your
Yes.
history, with your thoughts, your memories, all of that. That's not what you want to do. You want to shut that out. You want to shut the body out, and you just want to go deep within that silence and become aware of your nature. Feel the love that is inherent in being you. Find the wisdom that's inherent in that pregnant silence of no thought that is you. And to make this a practice so that you can find that place, because like I say, it's one of these puzzles, one of these illusion puzzles that once you touch it, you'll know it. But until then, it'll be quite a mystery. But you just keep doing it. He says, so be with your own self. So since you can't do anything but be with yourself, what he's saying is go into silence. Just be quiet because you are already with yourself. Just be with yourself. Not with the thoughts about yourself. Just be. Follow your breath for a moment, and then pay attention to the breath, and then pay attention to who's paying attention to the breath, and try and pay more attention to that than you are to the breath. And the nature of that is love. The nature of that is wisdom. And that is your being. And that's where he's asking you to go and to listen to it. And that listening, he's not talking about listening to a sound or listening to a word. It's an awareness toward it, of being aware. Listen to it, obey it. And by obeying it, it's not listening to a command, it's spontaneously allowing it to be you. to to kind of be fully present with it is what he's talking about. Cherish it. It's within that self. Use that love, kind of feel it. Let it arise, become aware of it. This is all very difficult to talk about because we're doing it in a very dual way. And because he's talking in a very dual way, but he's talking about a very non-dual space, a space where you're being very present within your own self, paying attention to nothing else but yourself paying attention, right? And to keep it in mind ceaselessly, to try and do this all the time, just occupy that space, because you'll need no other guide. Why? Because that guru is what you are. That voice of the guru is your own nature. Your nature is self-correcting. And so when you stop the mind and stop the body, you begin to move perfectly, because it's only love and wisdom that's inspiring movement, that's inspiring doing, right? It's at that level. I would say that at some level that's an enlightenment. It may not be the highest enlightenment, because there's still you listening and you obeying and you knowing yourself. So you're still in a dual state, but you'll see that just awareness itself is all that's necessary. That's why they say in all the paths that you're not the doer, because the doer is that divine principle that will manifest when you stop being a personality, when you stop being an ego, when you stop believing you have a history and that you have a future. And when you let go of all those things, then that which the bhaktas call God begins to manifest in you and express in you. And that is self-correcting, because it's the ego that was the problem. It was the idea of being separate from the beloved that caused you to believe that you were a body mind, that caused you to be selfish and self-centered, because you created a self that was separate from your real self. And you've lived in that self, because that self is the thought of you, right? You've placed yourself within your mind as a voice, and you've placed yourself within your mind that has a history and a memory and samskaras and karmas and has a view of the future. And so you've lived your life as the thought of you. You have not yet lived your life as you, right? You're living your life as the thought of you. And so he says, all is well with you. Live your life without hurting anybody. Harmlessness is a most powerful form of yoga, and it will take you speedily to your goal. This is what I call Nisarga Yoga, the natural yoga. It is the art of living in peace and harmony, in friendliness and love. The fruit of it is happiness, uncaused and endless, right? It's a spontaneity that we'll be getting in touch with. There's no planning. There's no calculation happening. There's simply you touching this battery of pure love within yourself and letting happen what happens. Touching this bare wire of your pure nature before it manifests as a personality, before it manifests as a thought. When it's you fully present in the moment, you'll have your hand on that battery, and that battery will give you a jolt of love. That is what put Ramakrishna into samadhi. You know, it's like touching an electric wire with your bare hand, but the current in that wire is love. It's not electricity. And so he's saying, that this is natural yoga, because the end of the game is just you being you. It's not you accomplishing anything except ridding yourself of wrong ideas about who you are and what you are. Right? And so the questioner retorts, well, still, all of this presupposes some sort of faith. And that's true for starting, for where we really are. But Maharaj is going to push a little bit more. He says, no, turn within and you will come to trust yourself. Right? It's like once you start turning inside and finding that your false narrative is false, you'll begin to develop a trust in yourself, which is the equivalent of the trust in the God in the path of bhakti yoga. So I hesitate to say those things because that was Ramakrishna's concern, that if you're a bhakta and you're taking an Advaita class, and then the teacher says something like what we just said, and you suddenly don't believe in God anymore, And it's like, what do you mean? It's just me? And that's the ultimate truth. But you see, in the narrative that we're talking about, God is the real one. So if you're thinking of God as a bhakta, that's what's real. It's you as the devotee that aren't real. You're the one that's going to merge into the unity. God's not going to disappear. You're going to disappear. So, we're talking about things too high in the sky for us. Let's see if we can get him to come down for us a little bit here. He says, turn within and you will come to trust yourself. In everything else, confidence comes with experience. Right? So just spending time being aware of awareness, spending time within your own self, allowing things to express, you just being quiet, understanding and practicing non-doership, all right? Non-doership at every level. That means that no thinking, and if you are thinking, understand that that's the mind thinking. You're not thinking. You just stay watching and being aware of yourself watching, right? More than you are aware of what you're watching. Put all of your attention, as much of it as you can, on that within you, which is watching. And if you do that, you come to trust it because its nature is divine. Its nature is love. And it will give you the fulfillment, the satisfaction, and the contentment that you're looking for in your life. So he says that your confidence is going to come with experience. As you do this, you're going to grow. You're going to come to know these things. So the questioner says, well, when a man tells me that he knows something that I do not know, I have the right to ask, what is it that you know that I do not know? And Maharaj says, And if he tells you that it cannot be conveyed in words, you know, the answer to your question can't be answered with language, because we're stepping outside of mind. We're stepping outside of time, space, causation. Those ideas belong to mind. We're stepping into the moment, into pure being. This moment, which has never ended and never begun, is where we're going, right? We got to stop thinking about being on a line with a past and a future and be on a point. And we want to be exactly on that point, present absolutely in the moment, right? So that the moment is spontaneous. It's not you acting. If you're acting or if you're thinking and calculating, you're not present. You're just a split second behind the moment. So he's telling us it can't be conveyed in words. The questioner says, well, then I'll watch him closely and try to make out. And Maharaj says, and this is exactly what I want you to do. Be interested, give attention until a current of mutual understanding is established. Then the sharing will be easy. As a matter of fact, all realization is only sharing. You enter a wider consciousness and share in it. Unwillingness to enter and to share is the only hindrance. I never talk of differences, for to me there are none. You do, so it is up to you to show them to me. By all means, show me the differences. For this you will need to have to understand me, but then you will no longer talk of differences. Understand one thing well, and you have arrived. What prevents you from knowing is not the lack of opportunity, but the lack of ability to focus your mind on what you want to understand. If you could but keep in mind what you do not know, it would reveal to you its secrets, right? If you could hold that awareness of your awareness without being distracted for a moment, right? Then you're going to touch something. You're going to brush against that bare wire at some point. But you have to be able to hold that space, hold that space of being aware of awareness. We slip off onto the other end so easily because we're always living at the other end. We're always more interested in what we're looking at or what we're aware of than we are of the awareness, right? The awareness somehow doesn't get our attention because it's unchanging. It's just a steady flow of awareness. And so we've got to be able to flip the mind onto that, just to stay aware of that awareness itself and not what it's aware of. And to keep practicing that and practicing that and practicing that and practicing that until we can hold our space there. We can hold, that's what Thakur was meaning when he said to make it your own. When you can find it, touch it, and then hold it, and then be. Just be from that space. Right. So what prevents you from knowing is not the lack of opportunity, but the lack of ability to focus in your mind what you want to understand. If you could but keep in mind what you do not know, it would reveal to you its secrets. But if you are shallow and impatient, not earnest enough to look and wait, you are like a child crying for the moon. Right. So you've got to develop that tenacity, that belief that it's there, and you've got to just be able to learn to hold your mind in a place with its awareness on itself, with awareness on awareness itself, and not slipping off the log into the lake of thinking, into the lake of change, into the lake of story and egoism. Very tall, a very tall order. It's a very, very tall order, and it's hard. There's no way to really talk about it. There's nothing we can really say about it to make it helpful. It's a puzzle. There's that. I bring it up endlessly. It's the one that I've seen, but there's several of them. They have these puzzles that if you cross your eyes and look at a point, suddenly you see a 3D object in the picture that you're looking at. That's one puzzle. Or there's another one that's got it's black and white. And it looks like, from one perspective, it looks like two faces facing each other. And then suddenly it'll switch and it'll be a candlestick, but once you've seen both the faces and the candlestick, then you can see whichever one you want to see. You just look at it and you make the black the background, and suddenly it's a candlestick. Make the white the background, and suddenly it's two faces. So it's like that. And well, it is a trick, really. This trick is very much like that. It's like you've got to sit there until you see the puzzle, until you get it. And once you've gotten it, you can't unsee it, right? But you have to have that patience of working to hold your mind in that stillness and to observe itself observing, right? Observe yourself observing and stay in there. And if you can do that even for split seconds, you'll get little gems. That's the gems that lay deep within your heart that Ramakrishna talks about, that are just outside the door of reality in your heart, the door to the temple, the door to your shrine. That's just going into that silence, being aware of that awareness, and just holding it as long as you can, uh, which when it's mature won't be an effort. It'll be effortless, because you'll finally be becoming. You'll be what you've always been. So he has a chapter break here. He says, by itself, nothing has existence. Right? Nothing has existence. So that awareness that you're trying to be aware of is your existence, right? That's existence itself. When you live in the thought of yourself, you're existing, but you're not being existence itself. You're not in that pure moment where there is no change, where just everything is spontaneous inspiration. So the questioner asks, he says, as I listen to you, I find that it's useless to ask you questions. Whatever the question, you invariably turn it upon itself and bring me to the basic fact that I'm living in an illusion of my own making, and that reality is inexpressible in words. Words merely add to the confusion, and the only wise course is the silent search within. I bet he's going to agree with that. Maharaj says, well, after all, it is the mind that creates illusion, and it is the mind that gets free of it. Words may aggravate illusion. Words may also help dispel it, right? The words helping yourself dispel it. That's Ramakrishna's reference to the splinter to take out the other splinter, using a thorn to take out the other thorn, and then you throw them both away. So you can coach yourself in the beginning, but the coaching really isn't helpful. You can't coach yourself into silence, right? Because you've got to shut the coach up. You've got to stop the coach from telling you what to do by insisting on that it's already done. Anytime you feel like something has to be done, oh, be more quiet. Oh, shift your mind here. Oh, try this. Slap that away and say, no, it's already done. And just keep occupying that space. It's already done. It's already done. There's nothing to do. There's nothing. I'm just being what I have always been, right? And just insist on it. So words may help dispel it. There's nothing wrong in repeating the same truth again and again until it becomes reality. Oh gosh, I'm running out of battery. Let's see. Nothing else could go wrong today. Let's see. All right, we're still there. Goodness gracious. So he says, there's nothing wrong with repeating the same truth again and again. This also could be used could be mantra. This is what I'm saying. The paths are not really different. They just are oriented different, use different language. Because this truth that he's repeating again and again, that's your mantra. And the name of God that you're using in your mantra is actually putting your attention on yourself, because that God that you're getting to know is your own awareness of yourself increasing, right? It's just in one path we're going to accept that as separate from us, and we're going to honor it by loving it, by trusting it, by surrendering into it. And that's the same idea of surrendering, letting go of our ego, dropping any thought of ourself, and coming into the silence of being. It's the same thing from two different perspectives, one from the path of Jnana Yoga, one from the path of Bhakti Yoga. So it's really the same process, just thought of differently. So when he says here, there's nothing wrong with repeating the same truth again and again until it becomes reality, that's mantra meditation for the bhakta. Or it's the holding on to, I am that, or putting my awareness on awareness and trying to hold that singular thought or that singular awareness of my own presence in there. Mother's work is not over with the birth of the child. She feeds it day after day, year after year, until it needs her no longer. People need hearing words until facts speak to them louder than words. The questioner says, so we are children to be fed on words, right? He's getting some relief. He's like, oh, so we are. We are children. We can be talked to. And Maharaj says, as long as you give importance to words, you are children. Right? As long as you think this is something that can be said or something that can be learned or that it's something you have to do, yes, we're children, we're spiritual babies until we come to know the truth of it, which is it already is and has always been. We have just occupied a different perspective that has led us into delusion, has led us into a wrong idea of ourselves. Right? And what is that wrong idea? That we're changing. What is that wrong idea? That we're in space and time, causation. What's that wrong idea? That we are anything that changes, right? So he says, all right, then we'll go ahead and be our mother then. Let's go ahead and try this tack. And so Maharaj says, where was the child before it was born? Right? So this is the path of Jnana, as you're going to sit here and just try and logically work this out. Where was the child before they were born? Was it not with the mother? Because it was already with the mother, it could be born. Questioner, well, surely the mother did not carry the child when she was a child herself. Maharaj, potentially she was the mother. Go beyond the illusion of time. Right? What is it to go beyond the illusion of time? Stop thinking that time exists. Go with what you're actually experiencing. You're not experiencing the passage of time. You're not. You're observing a body that's going through the change in time, but you have never changed. You know, the you that was in your 2-year-old body and the you that's sitting there in your 80-year-old body are the same you, unchanged. It is not within time. It has not undergone any adjustments whatsoever. Your awareness has always been your pure awareness, regardless of the condition of your body. And so he's saying, so know that that was true even before you took this body, right? Even before you took this body, this baby's body. And then he switches to the mother. You know, the mother, even as a child of another mother, she was at one time that mother. That was what allowed her to be born of that mother. And as a young girl, she is the potentiality of being that mother long before she is the mother. Right? When she gets older and gets a husband and XYZ, now she's a mother. And so, but it's always the same isness, the same presence, the same awareness within you. Before the body formed, you were the awareness of mother, or of the mother, right? And then when you were born, you were still that same awareness. But then you identified with the baby's body, and you found your toes, and you found your fingers, and then you started to practice how to walk. And before long, you believed those to be your toes. You believed those fingers to be your fingers. And you watched the body become familiar with itself, and you identified with it, and you thought you were learning how to walk, and you thought you, because you now are starting to live as the thought of you, as opposed to the awareness that has always been unchanging and present, and is what is actually giving life to everything and giving value to everything. So he says, potentially she was the mother. Go beyond the illusion of time. Your answer is always the same, the questioner says, a kind of clockwork which strikes the same hours again and again. And Maharaj says, it can't be helped. There's only one truth, and I can't do anything but tell you what it is until you accept it. But when I tell you to accept it, you immediately start trying to do something. Don't try to do anything. Just watch what is happening. Become aware of just what's going on. You are not the doer. So stop being triggered into thinking, okay, now I have to do something. Just become aware of everything that's going on, and then move your awareness from everything that's going on to the one being aware. That's all that has to be done. It's just a slight moving of awareness, right? He says it cannot be helped by repetition, can't be helped. Just like the one sun is reflected in a billion dewdrops, so is the timeless, endlessly repeated. When I repeat, I am, I merely assert and reassert an ever-present fact. You get tired of my words because you do not see the living truth behind them. Contact it, and you will find the full meaning of words and of silence, both. The silence of what you are that can't be described, and then the expression of what you are, which is where you're lost in right now. The idea of you, the idea of you that's the equivalent of a set of memories, a set of habits. How are we doing? Anybody fallen out off their chair
Good.
yet? What's that, Lydia?
We're doing good.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I'm not. I'm sitting here thinking, my goodness, how do we describe the undescribable here in any kind of coherent way? So he says, when I repeat the I am, I merely assert and reassert an ever-present fact, right? So your mantra is just a repetition of what is.
Right.
Not what's going to be, not of where I'm going to get to, not of what I'm going to meet. It's just a reassertion of what is already true. God is already present within you, if you want to take the Bhakti perspective, that God is, and that you are covered in grace completely and utterly. Nothing needs to be accomplished. You just simply have to accept grace in the moment and be with God and let that experience fill you without any ego thinking about it or analyzing it or wondering about it. And that's the same process of what he's talking about here, saying, I am, and leaving it at that, putting no adjectives after am. So not I am present, I am mother, I am old, I am tired, I am restless. Drop every adjective and just be I am, just be. And the question says, well, you say that the little girl is already the mother of her future child. Potentially, yes. Actually, no. Maharaj, the potential becomes actual by thinking. The body and its affairs exist in the mind, right? So anytime you're aware of a thought, then you're in delusion. And things are going to stick to that thought that you're aware of, right? Stories are going to form around it. Stuff is going to, it's like if you put a branch into a creek, you know, and that first leaf catches on the branch, and then another leaf, and then a stick catches on it, and then a piece of grass catches on it. And before long, the creek has dammed itself up. That's what happens when we identify with mind. When you start thinking and believing that thinking to be relevant to yourself, then the story starts. Then you enter into time, because time, that's where time happens. Time is the rate of your thinking. It's, you know, what's that? Anybody say something? No. And so we just, just coming into that pure presence, that pure awareness. So the potential, that isness of what you are, the isness that contains all possibilities, it becomes actual, it manifests by thinking, by really, we talked about this, that the mind with thought in it is Shakti. So you enter the world of Shakti. If you stay in the world of Shiva, you're pure potential. There's no personality there. There's just you being spontaneously motivated or inspired by your divine nature, your Satchitananda. As soon as you have a thought about yourself as Satchitananda, then you've stepped into time. Now you've actualized. Now you're in the world of change because you've stepped into a thought about a thought, right? So we don't want to pay any attention to the thoughts. We want to pay attention to who's watching the thoughts. We don't want to care about what the thoughts are saying or doing. We just want to know who's watching them. And so we just keep bringing back our awareness. Who's watching the thoughts? Who's giving me instructions? Who wants to know what I'm asking, right? Who's asking this question? So the questioner responds, and the mind is consciousness in motion, and consciousness is the conditioned aspect of the self. The unconditioned is another aspect, and beyond lies the abyss of the absolute. Maharaj, quite right. You have put it beautifully. So let's walk through that. And the mind is consciousness in motion. Okay, it's the world of Shakti. When you put me and mine into the mind, you live as the thought of yourself, and that thought of yourself lives among all of your other thoughts. And we've shared in the past that everything is a thought. The chair you're sitting on is just a thought. And so you sitting on that chair is not actually you sitting on that chair. It's the thought of you thinking about the thought of sitting on the thought of the chair. Right? So if you step into mind and believe the thoughts, the world happens, the whole universe happens. We don't want to go into the world of thought. We want to keep our attention on who is watching the thought. And to do that, you have to stay out of being the thought. You can't allow yourself to be the thought or the thinker. So the mind is consciousness in motion, and consciousness is the conditioned aspect of the self. Conditioned means that it's been given attributes. Those are the things that stick to the branch. Once you start holding on to a thought or being interested in a thought, other things start accumulating around that thought, and the universe forms around you, right? You want to stay aware of who was watching the first thought that happened. The unconditioned is another aspect. Okay, that's the, for our purposes, the shrine of the heart, where you're before thought, before mind, before body, where you're just in the silence of pure potential of being in the heart. That's where your realization is already formed and already waiting for you. It's already done. It's just a matter of moving your awareness from here to here, from the head, from the mind with thought, to the silence of the heart as the observer of thought. Right? That's what we're trying to make happen. And really, if we had not been doing this for so long and had such a habit of holding on to it, it would be as easy as me saying, feel your left foot right now, become aware of your left foot. And what happens? Immediately your awareness goes to your left foot, just like that, right? Because you're not attached to whatever else you were being aware of, you know, your shoulder or your thoughts. So I said, be aware of your left foot, and boom, you're aware of your left foot. technically, that's the same thing we're trying to do. Stop being aware of your thinking and become aware of the watcher. You're both of those, just like you're both. If I say, think of your arm, your left arm, then immediately you think of your left arm. You're aware of how it feels. You're living in your left arm. And then I say, think about your right knee. So now you'll leave your arm and you'll put your attention on your right knee, and you'll become all aware of your right knee. See, that's easy to do because we're very accustomed to paying attention to what we're paying attention to. But what I want you to do is I'll say, pay attention to your left arm. Okay, pay attention to your left arm. Now pay attention to your right knee. And now pay attention to that part, to that you that didn't change in that transaction. Pay attention to the you that was looking at the arm and noticing the arm, and then now is noticing the right knee, but didn't move anywhere. It just suddenly changed what it was being aware of. We want to be aware of that awareness, that thing that didn't move when your attention moved from your elbow to your knee, right? You want to be aware of that thing. And so this whole practice he's putting together here is simply that, trying to move your awareness from here to there. That's fine. You know, look at, or even move your, you can do any kind of movement. Move your arm, right? Just start moving it back and forth. And instead of paying attention to the moving of your arm, pay attention to the stillness that allows you to experience the movement of your arm, right? And leave the attention of the arm completely and just become aware of the still you, the you that's not moving, that allows you to experience the movement of your arm. And do that with anything. One of the most powerful ones that I experimented with was staring in the mirror and staring into my own eyes in the mirror and looking deeply into those eyes, and then moving my attention from the mirror to the me behind my eyes that was looking in the mirror, and feel that shift happen. The external shift, looking in the eyes of the person in the mirror, and then the internal shift that you feel when you withdraw your attention from the mirror and place it within yourself. And do that a few times. Feel that shift happen. Keep practicing it until you feel that shift happen. And that will give you a good place to begin for what we're doing. Or sit there and watch something. Watch television for a second. And see it, and then shift your attention to the watcher. It'll be the same practice, and then back outside to pay attention to the TV, then back inside paying attention to the watcher, outside, until you get familiar with that shift. You can feel that shift happen. And once you kind of identified that, you can go to the next step. Now you can shift it inward and stay aware of it and hold it there. Don't let yourself be distracted by anything else. And just keep practicing that, and you'll build up that spiritual muscle to get there. All right, so we're going to stop there tonight. I have no idea what this whole thing is going to look like.
Hey, you made it.
What's that?
You made it.
Yeah. Let's stop there. Yeah.